for those of you who don't know, some of you out there, I definitely see some student names and some other folks that I know. I'm Karen Duff, and I am your librarian here at the Chenery Middle School in Belmont, Massachusetts. And the favorite part of my job, aside from you beautiful kids out there and teaching you, okay, but right alongside that, is bringing in authors like Renée Watson. I had the incredible privilege and just to meet her a couple of years ago when she was going around talking about her book, Watch Us Rise, that she wrote with her friend Ellen Hagen. And Renee's got other books out too that are critically acclaimed. She's the real deal. And her characters are beautifully crafted. Her stories are rich with detail. That's the one thing. Your sentences are works of art, each and every one of them, okay? And I savor them, and then I put it down, and I go back and read it again. All right, but this isn't about me right now. I am going to turn this over to the wonderful Ms. Renée Watson. And again, thank you so much for being here with us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I loved visiting you when we were on book tour. It was like one of our favorite stops. So I'm so glad that we're connected again. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be in conversation with you today. I am going to introduce myself to you through a poem about where I'm from and the people and places that raised me. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I live in New York City, and I am from Jamaica. My roots are from Jamaica by way of my dad. So this poem honors Portland and New York and Jamaica and the people who raised me. After I read the poem, I'll talk a little bit and read a short scene from Piecing Me Together. Most importantly, I want to talk with you. So after that, we'll open it up for questions and we'll be in conversation. So this is where I'm from. I'm made up of East Coast hip hop and island tradition. I'm from Baptist hymns and secular jigs, tambourine playing, late night staying at the church house or my friend's house or their friend's house on the weekends. Where I'm from, there are corduroy hand-me-downs and family keepsakes, family pictures on the wall, open Bible on the coffee table. I'm from that side of town, where the media only comes for blood shed, blood wasted, never for blood restored, celebrated, or regenerated. I'm from hopscotch and double dutch, from hide and go seek and Pac-Man. I'm from curry goat, rice and peas and beef patties, from turquoise blue water, white sand, and dreadlocks. Reggae is in my blood. Grew up in the Pacific Northwest, a place where rain falls more than sun shines. I'm from Douglas firs and pine trees, where we walk under waterfalls, drive up windy roads, and escape to the beaches on the Oregon coast. Where I'm from, music takes away the blues. I'm from Bob Marley, Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin, James Brown. I'm from Jackson 5 Records and New Edition tapes. Where I'm from, we rewind tapes over and over and over again so you can write down the lyrics and memorize them. Where I'm from, the whole neighborhood is your family. Ladies sit on their porches looking out for you, shooing away boys like flies, calling your mama to tell her what you did before you can get home and lie about it. Where I'm from, people ask my friend, "Is that your hair?" And she says, "Yeah, it's mine. I bought it." I'm from divorce being passed down to children like a family heirloom. I'm from single mamas pushing strollers, praying that their babies will make the same mistakes as them. I'm from a little goes a long way. From sun's gonna shine after the rain. I'm from persevering souls and hardworking hands, from a people destined to make it to their promised land. I'm from been there, done that, can and will do it again. Now you, tell me, where you from? So in this poem, I am honoring home, right? And also critiquing home as well. There's so many things growing up in Portland that I loved and that were so special to me. The women sitting on the porches looking out for me and for my friends and family. I always say I was raised by the community. Yes, by my mother, but there were so many other adults who were so loving and caring and were making sure that the young people in the neighborhood were taken care of. There was so much beauty and so much love in my neighborhood. And there were things that I wanted to change also. There were things that were not so great. And home can be complicated in that way, right? Home can be a place that is nurturing, and it can also be a place where you're like, there's some things I don't like about this, and we need to talk about it and change it. And when I say home, I don't just mean your literal physical home, but home as in community, neighborhood, the place that you're being raised in. And so in my writing, I like to both celebrate and critique home and communities and people, because I do think that you can have like the best moment and the worst moment happening at the same exact time. A person can be loving and sometimes unkind, and that can exist in one person. And we don't want to quit on people, right? And we don't just throw away our communities. We stay. Love is hard. And if you love a place or you love a person, you stick with it and you fight for it to change. And so in my writing, characters are struggling with that dynamic of really being proud of where they come from, but also knowing that there's some things that are not okay about where they come from. They love their friends, they love their families, but there are complicated parents and complicated friendships that they're having to deal with. And in Piecing Me Together, we meet Jade, and she is caught in that world of lots of things that are great and good and things that are not so good. And one of the things for me as a writer, this book takes place in the city that I grew up in. And I do remember and know what it feels like to have outsiders come into my neighborhood and say that it was broken or not good enough and that nothing good could come from that side of town. And meanwhile, I would be in that neighborhood talking about, what do you mean? There's so much beauty here. There's so many talented people. There's so many nice people, hardworking people. And so sometimes a place can be beautiful and broken. And sometimes what people call broken is actually not broken at all. And so Jade is figuring that out about her neighborhood, the place that she calls home. How can she celebrate its beauty while feeling like some people only want to talk about the bad stuff? And how can she fight for things that she wants to change? So I am going to read a scene from Piecing Me Together. And this scene, when I wrote it, this was the moment that I knew, oh, I have the title now. Sometimes titles come to me very late in the writing process. And as Jade is trying to figure out, how does she literally piece herself together? How does she remain whole in a world that seems like it wants to break her? I don't know if any of you ever feel that way. I have felt that way in my life, where there are some places and there are some people who, when you're around them, you feel so capable, so smart, so brilliant and beautiful, and you feel like you can do anything, and they really encourage you, right? And then there are other places and other people, when you're around them, they make you feel not so great, and they make you feel like torn down, and maybe you can't do anything, and maybe you're not as smart as you think you are, you're not as beautiful as you believe you are. And so Jade is trying to figure out, how can I keep my self-esteem intact no matter where I am, no matter who's believing in me and who's not? How can I hold on to that truth of who I am and keep myself pieced together? So in this scene, she is at a girls' night talk, and they've asked all the girls to put a question in the box. They're going to shake it up and ask the questions and have a conversation. And so far, Jade has been listening in on this conversation, and she feels like it's a little superficial. They're talking about dating and getting advice about things that she's like, yeah. Can we talk about some real important stuff? I have real problems and I want some real answers. And she's not sure that these women can answer her real question. Piecing Me Together. Sabrina ends the night with a talk about following our dreams and believing in ourselves. You have to believe you are worthy of love, of happiness, that you are worthy of your wildest dreams coming true. When she says this, so many thoughts rush through my mind. I am thinking about how Mom had plenty of dreams, and EJ is not short on self-confidence, and Lily has known she wants to be a poet since we were in middle school, so it can't just be about believing and dreaming. My neighborhood is full of big dreamers, but I know that doesn't mean those dreams will come true. I know something happens between the times our mothers and fathers and teachers and mentors send us out into the world telling us the world is yours and you are beautiful and you can be anything, and the time we return to them. Something happens when people tell me I have a pretty face, ignoring me from the neck down. When I watch the news and see unarmed Black men and women shot dead over and over, it's kind of hard to believe this world is mine. Sometimes it feels like I leave home a whole person, sent off with kisses from mom, who is hanging her every hope on my future. By the time I get home, I feel like my soul has been shattered into a million pieces. Mom's love repairs me. Whenever mom's cooking is simmering on the stove and EJ's music is filling every inch of the house and I am making my art, I believe everything these women are saying about being worthy of good things. Those are the times I feel secure, feel just fine. I look in the mirror and I see my dad's eyes looking back at me, my mom's thick hair, thick everything. And that's when I believe that my dark skin isn't a curse, that my lips and hips, hair and nose don't need fixing, that my dream of being an artist and traveling the world isn't foolish. Listening to these mentors, I feel like I can prove the negative stereotypes about girls like me wrong, that I can and will do more, be more. But when I leave, it happens again, the shattering. And this makes me wonder if a Black girl's life is only about being stitched together and coming undone, being stitched together and coming undone. I wonder if there's ever a way for a girl like me to feel whole. Wonder if any of these women can answer that. So that's a piece from Piecing Me Together. And Jade is trying to figure out, how can I remain whole, and who are the people who are going to help put me back together? So I hope that you all have someone in your life, an adult, a friend, who, when you're feeling torn apart and broken, that you know you can go to them and get some relief and some encouragement and some support. And that is a form of being pieced back together. Sometimes I turn to art and to books and to music, but I also have some great people in my life who help inspire me and encourage me when things are a little bit rough. So I hope that you have that too. We're going to open it up for questions now and be in conversation.
Now, Renee, I have to go back through the chat. So many wonderful things about your poem. What a beautiful poem. What a rich and textured poem.
Oh, thank you.
Your reading of it is spectacular. So amazing. And Jess says, this book is so beautiful, read out loud. That is how we are reading it at our house. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
It does read like poetry. And so tell us a little bit about the poetic side of you.
Sure. You know, I always say poetry is my first love. I grew up reading poetry. I grew up reciting poetry in church and at school. So it was the first mirror for me. We talk a lot about windows and mirrors in children's literature. Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop offered that great offering to us to think about, what books are you looking into where you can see yourself, and what books are you looking into where you are looking out into the world and practicing empathy. And for me as a child, I had a lot of window books. I was always practicing empathy, and it felt like I was always learning about other people and applying, a little bit of what they were going through to my life. But poetry, meaning Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, those were the mirrors. That's when I heard people talking like the people in my house and in my neighborhood. And I felt like they were talking about the issues that I was also thinking about and caring about. So yeah, I grew up writing poetry, reading it, loving it, and I think it just shows up in my writing.
People love how you perform your work, because that's really what it is. And wondering if you've ever done any slam poetry.
I have not competed, and so not slam poetry, but I have done spoken word poetry.
Okay.
So more so like open mics and just sharing. And I also taught spoken word and slam poetry. So I was a teacher and kind of the coach of a lot of high school slam teams in the Bronx. And I loved that work. I loved hearing young people, first of all, write their truths, but then to be brave enough to be on stage, perform it, and get scored. I don't know if I'm that brave.
Yeah,
people score you right as you're, performing it. But yeah, I definitely have a background in slam and spoken word poetry.
Wow, that's great. And I know I didn't do a good job in your biography, and I was so excited to hear you start reading your poem and talking. But this next question might get a little bit to how you grew up in Portland, Oregon. But you also love New York City, and that's a big part of your identity and your life as well. So who inspires your characters?
Oh, I get inspiration from so many people. My childhood always kind of comes into my work. The young people that I've worked with, so that I just mentioned teaching poetry to young people. I taught for about 20 years as a teaching artist, so a guest writer in the schools. And I would get to be with students for the whole school year, at least twice a week. So I really got to know students, and that I think a lot of their voices are still with me and their stories. I get inspiration from the news, like it just, all of it. Life in general is always inspiring me. I tell people often, if you're a good writer, you know how to eavesdrop and listen in on conversations. And so sometimes I'm walking or I'm on the subway and I'm just listening and taking in the world, and it shows up in my writing.
Please feel free to ask additional questions in the Ask a Question, or for that matter, in the chat. So one of the things that I read in your bio is that one of the things you like to do when you're getting yourself settled in to write for the day is and I like this, I really like this, you make a soundtrack.
Yes.
For your character.
Yes. So I love music. I grew up with music constantly being played in the house when we're cleaning on Saturday mornings, cooking dinner. Like, we just were a very musical family. And so music comforts me, and I focus when I'm listening to music. And so, to help me stay in the world of my character and the world I'm building for her, I make a playlist of songs that either I think she would like or that deals with the themes that are in the book. And I keep that just on repeat over and over as I'm writing. And I've done that for many years. So I have like playlists for most of the books that I've written. And it really helps me stay focused. And I know some people cannot write to anything. They need complete silence. But there's something about a steady noise and a noise that I know that is comforting and fills up the space and helps me write.
Yeah, I have a 50-year-old and she's the same way. I tried to say, come on, hon, you got to concentrate. She's like, I swear, it's the best concentration for me.
Yeah, it works.
Calms me down, keeps me all focused, makes my brain calm.
Yeah, and it sets a tone and a mood. So, we're talking about piecing me together today, but I also write picture books, and sometimes I do biographies. And so I was writing about Florence Mills, who lived in the 20s and, sang jazz. And I really needed to get in that world. So I had a lot of Duke Ellington on and John Coltrane, and just, trying to get in that spirit. So, it really does help.
One of the things that is also in your biography is because of your books, you've been able to travel to Japan and Korea and Australia, and your books are now probably being translated into other languages as well.
They are, and I just can't even believe that. It's such an honor to think that this, especially with piecing me together, a story that felt so Portland and so much about this, this particular girl, for it to be an international success and be translated has been really powerful. For me to have conversations with young people literally on the other side of the world, who are dealing with those same issues of feeling invisible, feeling like people aren't really listening and understanding where they come from or the intersections of who they are. I think, I've had some great conversations with young people all over the world, and that has been very moving and touching for me. It's been a beautiful experience. And
the first time I read this book, it was prior to COVID, prior to George Floyd. I read it right when it came out, and just rereading it now in this moment in time, it's a very different experience, to be honest with you. given the Black Lives Matter movements and the protests across the world, not just about police brutality, but otherness and not understanding and accepting and including people either through the political process or just even culturally. So I want to thank you for that, because it really brought a lot of deeper understanding of what people who don't look like me go through. You know, so I want to thank you for that. Your work is essential on that level too. But also for me, any middle grader or adolescent, I mean, that's such a rough age. And to be able to read with somebody like Jade, you know, who it just brings us all, it's all humanity, right? And it's all real struggle, just to varying degrees.
Yeah, you know, when I was writing this book, in the beginning of writing it, I wasn't going to include the whole thread of Natasha Ramsey and the incident of police brutality that happens in the book. But as I was writing the book, of course, this is right after, you know, we kind of had Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and then a small little, you know, break. And then there was a surge of young Black girls that were coming to the forefront, and women who were dying or being assaulted. And Sandra Bland happened. A video went viral with a Black girl being dragged out of her school desk by campus security. There was a video of girls in a swimming pool at I think a birthday party, and they were also dragged and kind of assaulted by the police. And so I was like, you know, I cannot write about a Black girl growing up in the United States of America as a contemporary, you know, book and not bring in what is really happening in the world. I write realistic fiction, so I have to keep it real. I have to deal with what's happening. So I wanted to acknowledge that is going on while young people are expected to still just carry on, right? Jade gets that news in the morning and she has to go to school, and her teachers expect her to be present and focused. And so that's hard for an adult to do, let alone a young person. And so I really wanted to just bring attention to kind of that burden that is carried when something happens to your people, to your neighborhood, in your world, and that we should all be caring, even if we don't look like that person that it happened to, that the person is human, so we ought to care. And so, yeah, it was important for me to include that and to also show, well, what do we do with that anger and sadness and frustration? Especially, I remember what it felt like to be a young person and feel kind of powerless when things like that happened. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and when I was in the 5th grade, Mulugeta Sarah, an Ethiopian man, was beaten to death by skinheads. They beat him with a baseball bat, and they hit him so hard that the bat split in half. And this was just a hate crime. There was no interaction. They just kind of made a deal with each other that the next Black person they see, they were going to kill them. And it happened to be Mulugeta. And I remember being in the 5th grade and being devastated. Like, how could that happen in my community, especially when teachers were teaching us, you know, we've had enslavement, we've had the civil rights movement, everyone's free, and yay, you know, and then this thing happens. And I remember being so sad. But one of my teachers had us write poems about how we felt. We could write a letter to the family. She asked us to use our words to say something about what was going on. And I'm so thankful for that teacher, because I needed a space to put my emotions. And so when I'm writing these books, I'm thinking about, what are our young people facing? What's going on? And how can a book be a space for them to process? How can I show them characters who are using the arts to get their voices heard and to cope with what's going on? So yeah, that's a lot of the backstory of why that plot line came into piecing it together.
Beautifully said. Thank you for that. And this is actually a really good question, a segue from one of our school kids. There are a lot of people in our community who are interested in social justice work. This book is in some ways a cautionary tale about folks who get into that work with the wrong intentions. one of the reviews called it, quote, the toxicity of sympathy. Do you have a view on how to get involved in activism in an authentic and compassionate way, avoiding that toxicity?
I love that question.
Isn't
I
that
really,
good?
really appreciate that question. You know, I think it's important for us to listen. I think Miss Parker and Maxine, they don't start off from a place of listening or asking questions. They just come in thinking they know already everything that there is to know about Jade and what she needs. And no one is asking her. And no one is, well, I shouldn't say no one. Her mother, there are people who do know what she can offer and who she really is. But I also think there's something about, which I love about Maxine and Jade's relationship, is that they're both giving to each other. They're both learning from each other. Maxine has a lot of growing to do and a lot of things that she is working on in her personal life, right? And so even though you might be coming in saying, I am an ally, I'm going to help, I want to support, that doesn't mean you have all the answers, and there's still going to be some things you have to work on. But that should not keep you from trying, right? It shouldn't keep you from getting in it. And so even when we think about Sam is on her learning curve and just like, whoa, I just didn't know. I never really thought about that. And that's okay. You know, it's okay to be at that spot, but it's important to know that, okay, I have some learning to do, but I still want to be a part of the conversation. So I would say, especially if you're beginning and thinking about how do I get into this work, it is to first listen and ask questions and be patient with yourself, because you are going to make mistakes, and that's okay, right? We're all still learning and figuring out how to live in this world together. And so you make a mistake, and the important thing is to apologize immediately and not make excuses because you had good intentions. I assume most people have good intentions, but intention does not always mean that the impact of what you do is not going to be harmful. So it's important to just acknowledge, I made a mistake. Let me go make that right. And let's try to move forward.
Exactly. Thank you for that. That's really good sage advice. And apologizing is humbling.
It is. It's really hard to do without defending yourself, because you want to make it clear that I didn't mean to do that. And I think when you're in relationship with people, they already know. They just need to hear that you're sorry.
That's exactly right. Here's another one, if you have time, Renee. How did you think up the woman-to-woman program for Jade? Did you experience something like this program? That was a really wonderful catalyst for the story moving forward.
Yeah, so I've been on both sides of mentorship. I have, and still am. I have been in programs that I felt like were coming in to fix me. And then I've been the mentor and been given the mandate to go in and do good. And so I know kind of the pitfalls and the beauty of those programs. So I am an advocate for mentorship, and it wasn't a critique on mentoring to say these programs shouldn't exist, but more so let's think about how to be a little more thoughtful. So yeah, I know what it's like to be both Jade and Maxine. I remember when I was in middle school and high school, when I would look at adults, I thought they were so perfect and that they should know everything because they're adults. And then I became an adult and I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much still to learn and there's so much I don't know. And I want to do right by these young people that I'm working with, but I'm still growing and learning. And so I have a lot of compassion for Maxine because she's still working through some things, and that's okay. Mentorship is messy because none of us are perfect. So I was hoping to show this intergenerational relationship and how both, even if you're young, you can still impact an adult's life just like they can impact yours.
Yeah, and that's such a great scene in the car before they go into the restaurant when Jade, for the first time, really finds her voice.
Yeah.
She's kind of shunned Maxine for a bit because she's just done with it, right? Or she thinks she's done with
over it. Yeah.
So that is a really wonderful scene.
Thank you. Thank you.
And one of our students, Jess, who asked the question about social activism, she wanted to thank you personally for you gave her a lot to think about. So
of course.
Now it's my understanding our time is up. Do you know? I could look it up, but are your books available in audiobooks as well? That was one question.
Most of them are, not all of them,
Yes.
but yeah, Piecing Me Together is narrated by me. So,
Oh, thank goodness. I love author narrations.
And Watch Us Rise is also an audiobook as well. Ellen and I didn't read that one, but yeah, a lot of my books are on audiobook as well.
And what are you working on now? And we'll close it up for you.
I am
know you have
working
somewhere to
on,
go.
I should have had it with me. I just finished, actually. My next young adult novel will be Love is a Revolution, and it comes out in February. And it's a love story, but it's also about self-love. So a girl, she kind of fakes being an activist. Speaking of how do you be an activist, she fakes being an activist to impress a guy. And then in the midst of that, she realizes that she really does care about that work, but also needs to care about herself before she can show love to other people. So it's a book that celebrates self-love and also Black love. And it all takes place in one summer in Harlem.
Wow. I cannot wait.
Oh, thank you.
Any chance to get an advanced reader's copy?
Yeah, we should email each other after this.
I am shameless.
I'll make sure that we send you one for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I know this is a big reading and writing community. We have been engaged in the last number of months in social justice initiatives in the town, and me in the city of Boston and across the nation. I mean, I think you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And just an extraordinary human being and an extremely gifted writer and artist. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming in this afternoon, and keep writing, keep having conversations, keep sharing your voice. Your voice matters. It really does. And
we're getting thank yous are rolling into the chat.
Awesome.
Kids who are from Chenery, or even if you're at the high school, I have multiple copies of Renee's book at Chenery, and I got a little bookmobile thing going on, so I'm happy to just email me, kduff@belmontschools.net. We got to get this book in your hands if you want to read it, okay?
We've got it at Belmont Books as well. We've got an entire bookstore. We've got an entire page of Renee's books on our website. Just look up Renée Watson, and all her stuff is right there.
And shout out to Belmont Books for organizing this, for real. Yes. And also, COVID's been really hard on small businesses. Support your local independent bookstore, because without them, Renee wouldn't have been with us today. It just wouldn't have happened, okay? And it's so important for Renee to be out there in front of young minds and readers, okay? And that's what this is all about. So your independent bookstores, let's do this, all right? We got this, all right? And Belmont Public Library has also purchased multiple ebook copies as well, okay? Thank you, Ms. Watson. You are amazing.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Thanks so much. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Stay safe and healthy out there, Renee.